Oh, look at this. Look at them now. Smiling wider, bowing deeper, using your name like it's coated in honey instead of the poison they used to spit. Respect, they call it. Growth, they whisper. We always knew you had it in you, they lie through perfectly rehearsed grins. But you beautiful, scarred, undefeated soul, you know better, don't you? Because you've seen this movie before. You've tasted the bitterness hiding behind their sweetness. You've felt the weight of their eyes when they thought you weren't looking, measuring, calculating, waiting for the exact moment you'd stumble so they could finally breathe again. Welcome back. Or should I say, welcome to the aftermath, to the reckoning they never saw coming, to the silent war you won without firing a single shot. Let's get something carved into stone right now. Something so clear, even their selective memory can't erase it. They are not respecting you. They are managing you. They are not celebrating your rise. They are mourning their miscalculation. What you're witnessing is not admiration. It's damage control. It's fear wearing a mask so convincing even they started believing their own performance. But you see through the applause, don't you? You see the trembling hands behind the claps. You hear the strain in their voices when they say your name now, like it burns their throat just a little, like acknowledging your existence costs them something they can never get back, because it does. It costs them their illusion, their superiority, their carefully constructed narrative where you were supposed to stay small, stay broken, stay beneath them forever. For months, maybe years, they watched you like vultures circling a body that refused to die. They waited for the collapse, the public meltdown, the moment you'd prove every cruel assumption they whispered in rooms you were never invited to. They needed you to fail, not because they hated you. No, that would be too simple, too honest. They needed you to fail because your failure was the only evidence that could justify the way they treated you when you were down, when you were invisible, when you were nothing but background noise in their self-obsessed symphony. Your downfall was supposed to be their vindication, their proof that they were right all along to dismiss you, to underestimate you, to treat you like you were temporary. But here's the problem, the beautiful, undeniable problem that keeps them awake at 3 a.m., staring at ceilings they can't afford to repaint. You didn't fall. You didn't break. You didn't give them the satisfaction. Instead, you did something they never planned for. Something so simple yet so devastating to their entire worldview. You improved, quietly, privately, without their permission or their input or their validation. You became the version of yourself they swore didn't exist, the one they mocked behind closed doors, the one they bet against in conversations you'll never hear recordings of. And now, oh now, they're stuck in a nightmare of their own creation, forced to watch someone they buried alive walk past them, in tailored confidence, in earned peace, in a light so bright it exposes every shadow they tried to hide. The respect you're seeing? That's not respect. That's terror dressed in business casual. That's the frantic scrambling of people realizing they're on the wrong side of history, your history, and there's no way to rewrite their role in your origin story. Look at them closely now. Watch how their smiles don't reach their eyes, how their compliments sound like confessions. You've changed, they say. And what they mean is, you're not supposed to be here. Not like this. Not standing taller than the grave we dug for you. You're glowing, they observe. And what they're really thinking is, how dare you bloom in the same soil where we planted your defeat? Every kind word is a white flag they're too proud to admit they're waving. Every invitation they extend now is a desperate attempt to rewrite themselves into your success story as supporters instead of saboteurs. They want proximity to your light because their own has dimmed to nothing, and they're hoping, praying, that some of your credibility will rub off on their collapsing reputations. But you know what the most delicious part is? The twist they never saw coming even though you saw it from miles away? You don't need them anymore. Not their approval, not their presence, not their revisionist history. You see, There's a specific kind of torture reserved for people who underestimate the wrong person, and it's not revenge, it's not confrontation, it's not even acknowledgement. It's indifference. It's watching you move through spaces they once controlled with your head high, your circle tight, your energy protected, and realizing they no longer have access, they no longer matter, they no longer exist in the equation of your happiness. They threw you away like trash, and now they're watching that trash get auctioned off as treasure, while they're left holding receipts for a transaction they can't refund. The respect they're showing you now is not a gift, it's a plea. It's them begging you, silently, desperately, to forget who they were when you had nothing to offer them, to erase the footage of their cruelty, to pretend their loyalty was always there when you both know it appeared the exact second you didn't need it anymore. But let's go deeper. Let's pull back the curtain on what's really happening behind their forced smiles and calculated compliments. They can't sleep. I mean it literally, physiologically. They are losing sleep over you. Not because you threatened them, not because you sought revenge, but because your silence is louder than any accusation they could have prepared a defense for. You're not talking about them. You're not explaining your side. You're not trying to expose them. And that is what's driving them to the edge of sanity. Because people like them, people who built their self-worth on the suffering of others, they need conflict. They need drama. They need you to engage so they can play victim, so they can twist the narrative, so they can tell their version of the story where they're misunderstood heroes and you're the bitter villain who couldn't let go. But you didn't give them the script they memorized. You didn't show up to the fight they trained for. You didn't even acknowledge the arena they built specifically to humiliate you in. And now they're standing there, weapons drawn, speeches prepared, audience gathered, and you're just gone, moved on, thriving, unbothered. Do you understand how devastating that is to someone who spent months, maybe years, crafting the perfect comeback to an attack you never launched? Do you grasp the existential crisis brewing in people who realize the person they hurt the most doesn't even think about them anymore? That's not respect you're seeing in their eyes when they look at you now. That's the hollow gaze of someone staring into the mirror you became, seeing themselves for the first time, and realizing they don't like what's staring back. You didn't defeat them. You outgrew them. And that's infinitely worse. Here's what they'll never tell you, what they'll take to their graves before admitting out loud. They're not afraid of who you are now. They're afraid of who they revealed themselves to be when they thought you'd never rise again. Every cruel joke, every dismissive comment, every time they looked through you like you were glass, it's all recorded, not on your phone or in some secret file, but in the permanent archive of their character. And now that you're someone they have to respect, someone they have to acknowledge, someone they can't ignore without looking foolish, those recordings are playing on loop in their minds. They're haunted by their own words, their own actions, their own choices. You're not doing anything to them. You're just existing, successfully, joyfully, powerfully. And that existence is the most brutal reminder of everything they got wrong about you, about themselves, about the way the world actually works. They thought humility was weakness. You showed them it was strategy. They thought your silence was defeat. You showed them it was preparation. They thought your kindness was naivety. You showed them it was strength they could never comprehend because they've never possessed it. And now they're trying to course correct, trying to align themselves with the winning side, trying to pretend they were always Team You, but it's too late. You see, there's a window for genuine support, and they missed it. They were too busy laughing when you stumbled to notice when you started walking. They were too busy celebrating your struggles to catch the moment you turned those struggles into fuel. And now they want credit for your success? Now they want to be remembered as believers? The audacity is almost impressive if it wasn't so pathetically transparent. Let's talk about what keeps them up at night, specifically. It's not just guilt, though there's plenty of that rotting in the corners of their conscience they pretend doesn't exist. It's the realization that they had you, they had access to your energy, your ideas, your loyalty, your presence, and they wasted it. They had front row seats to your potential, and they spent that time throwing tomatoes instead of taking notes. They could have been allies. They could have been supporters. They could have been part of the team that built something extraordinary. But they chose mockery over mentorship, sabotage over solidarity. And now they're watching from the outside while others benefit from the very gifts they rejected. That's the insomnia fuel right there. That's what has them scrolling through old messages at 2 a.m., wondering if there's a way to undo the past, to rewrite their responses, to erase the evidence of their short-sightedness. But there's no undo button for character, no edit option for integrity. They showed you who they were, and you believed them, and you adjusted accordingly. You didn't make a scene, you didn't burn bridges, you just quietly, calmly, permanently rearranged your life so they no longer had a role in it. And that's the part that kills them, the part that gnaws at their peace every single night. You didn't need some dramatic confrontation, you didn't need to expose them publicly, you didn't need revenge because you understood something they still don't. The best revenge isn't destruction, it's construction. It's building a life so fulfilling, so successful, so authentically joyful, that their absence isn't even noticeable, that their opinion becomes irrelevant, that their respect, whether genuine or fabricated, doesn't add or subtract a single ounce of value to your existence. They're showing you respect now because they have to, because the social cost of disrespecting you has finally exceeded the ego boost they got from putting you down. It's mathematics, cold and simple. When you were struggling, dismissing you was free, easy, even entertaining for them. But now that you're rising, now that others see your value, now that your name carries weight, disrespecting you has become expensive. It costs them opportunities, connections, credibility. So they switched, not because they changed, not because they grew, but because the price tag on their cruelty finally came due and they can't afford to pay it anymore. That smile they're giving you, that handshake they're offering, that we should catch up sometime, they're throwing your way. It's all currency in the economy of social survival. And you, my friend, you've become too valuable to insult and too powerful to ignore. But here's where you hold all the cards, where you possess the power they're desperately trying to pretend doesn't exist. You know the truth. You remember. You have the receipts, not in screenshots or recordings, but in the scars they left, in the lessons their cruelty taught you, in the strength their dismissal forced you to develop. They need you to forget. They need you to accept this new version of events, where they were always supportive, always kind, always on your side. Their entire strategy depends on your amnesia, on you being grateful enough for their current attention that you overlook their past betrayal. But you're not forgetting, are you? You're not erasing. You're just choosing not to correct them, not to educate them, not to waste your time explaining to people who weren't confused. They were cruel, and they knew exactly what they were doing when they did it. And that choice, that decision to simply move forward without dragging them backward, that's not weakness. That's not you being naive or forgiving too easily. That's you understanding that some people don't deserve your energy, not your anger, not your explanations, not even your acknowledgement. They're getting the bare minimum, the polite nod, the professional courtesy, the surface-level interaction that costs you nothing and gives them no ammunition. You're not giving them closure. You're not giving them confrontation. You're giving them exactly what they fear most: irrelevance. You're letting them exist in the peripheral vision of your life while you focus on the masterpiece directly in front of you. And that is what's destroying them from the inside out. Let's examine the psychology of what they're experiencing right now, because it's important you understand the full scope of your silent victory. When they see you now, succeeding, thriving, unbothered, their brains are doing something fascinating, something painful. They're experiencing cognitive dissonance. the mental torture of holding two contradictory beliefs simultaneously. On one hand, they told themselves you were nothing, you were weak, you were never going to amount to anything. They built their self-esteem on that foundation, convinced themselves they were superior because they recognized your flaws that others couldn't see. But on the other hand, reality is now screaming the opposite. You're something, you're strong, you're amounting to more than they ever imagined, more than they're achieving themselves in some cases, and their entire self-concept is crumbling. To resolve this dissonance, they have two options. Option 1, admit they were wrong, admit they misjudged you, admit their cruelty was unjustified and their arrogance was misplaced. That's the healthy option, the growth option. But it requires humility they don't possess and accountability they've spent their entire lives avoiding. Option 2, rewrite history. Pretend they always saw your potential. Act like they were always in your corner. Convince themselves and others that their current respect is consistent with their past behavior. That's the easy option, the coward's option, and it's the one most of them are taking. They're choosing the comfort of the lie over the liberation of the truth. And you know what? Let them. Let them live in their delusion. Let them tell their revised version of events to anyone who will listen. Because the people who matter, the people who were actually there, they know the truth, and no amount of retroactive cheerleading can erase the silence when you actually needed support. But here's the beautiful irony, the cosmic justice in all of this. Their fake respect is more valuable to them than it is to you. They need you to accept it, to validate it, to allow them back into your orbit so they can feel better about themselves, so they can sleep at night telling themselves they're not the villains in your story. But you don't need it. You've already healed without their apology. You've already succeeded without their support. You've already built a life where their presence is optional at best and unnecessary at worst. So when they approach you now with their hands out, with their smiles wide, with their respect flowing like wine they only just uncorked, you're in the driver's seat. You get to decide if they get a seat at your table or if they watch from the parking lot. You get to decide if their respect means anything or if it's just noise you tune out while focusing on people who were there when respect was risky, when supporting you could have cost them something, when believing in you wasn't the popular bet. They can't sleep because they're finally doing the math they should have done years ago. They're calculating the value of what they lost, the potential of what they rejected, the opportunity of what they dismissed. And the numbers, oh, the numbers don't lie. They're in the red, deep in the red, and there's no bailout coming. You were an investment they passed on, and now they're watching you pay dividends to people who had the vision they lacked, the faith they couldn't muster, the decency they chose not to display. Every success you achieve, every milestone you reach, every moment you shine, it's a reminder of their failure, not your failure like they predicted, but their failure to recognize value when it was standing right in front of them, asking for nothing but basic human decency. And here's what they'll never understand, what their fear-based respect will never grasp. You didn't change to spite them. You didn't improve to prove them wrong. You didn't rise to make them regret. You did all of that for you, because you decided you were worth the effort even when no one else did, because you chose yourself even when everyone else chose to abandon you, because you believed in a future they couldn't see and wouldn't have supported even if they could. Their disbelief wasn't your obstacle.